What lies beneath Hitler's house? Not a hidden bunker full of secrets or some lurid anatomical mystery from the tabloids, but a bowling alley. Beneath the hillside of the Berghof, the Führer's mountain retreat in Obersalzberg, there was a small private lane where a dictator and his guests played a very ordinary game. The Berghof sat high in the Bavarian Alps, a chalet of stone and timber with sweeping views and carefully staged domesticity. To tourists and propagandists, it was homey. Portraits, deer heads, Eva Braun's preferences, afternoons on the terrace. Behind that image, however, the house contained a surprisingly mundane private space. In the late 1930s, photographs and recollections point to an underground room with a wooden lane, a scoreboard on the wall, and the kind of modest exercise equipment someone might keep in any comfortable house, all tucked beneath the living quarters. If you like deep dives into odd corners of history, subscribe for more. Visual: map of Berchtesgaden/Obersalzberg, on-screen text, Berghof, late 1930s. Publicly, Hitler cultivated a very specific persona: the solitary leader on long walks, the reader, the meticulous propagandist. Privately, visitors and staff later described quieter habits: a taste for simple sweets, walks with his dog, evenings with Eva Braun. Those small details do not humanize or excuse anything. They only remind us that even the most dangerous political actors live with household routines. After the war, the Allies and German authorities made a practical decision. They wanted to remove the physical remains of a regime. Many structures on the Obersalzberg were demolished in the 1950s and 1960s, and rubble was used to bury foundations. What remained of the Berghof's basement, it turns out, was largely entombed beneath deliberate piles of debris. The documentary evidence is suggestive rather than lurid. Archival photographs dated 1937 and a New Year's Eve image from 1938 show a low-ceilinged room, a scoreboard on the plaster wall, and a group of people, including Hitler and Eva Braun, standing near a lane decorated with seasonal ornaments. In the New Year's image, a clock, a garland, and the faces of guests cluster around what looks unmistakably like an indoor bowling lane, though not the kind most Americans picture. The game was Kegel, the traditional German form of bowling using 9 pins rather than 10. Kegel lanes are narrower, the play is different, and the pins are often reset by hand or with simpler mechanisms than modern pin setters. It's a centuries-old pastime with medieval roots in European villages, an old recreational language rather than a modern sports hall. The presence of Kegel equipment in domestic basements was not unique to Berghof. It reflected a regional leisure habit pressed into a private space. A member of Hitler's household staff later described the secrecy surrounding the lane.
As the source puts it, if the bowling associations get wind, the sentence hangs off the page, and the implication is clear. Hitler did not want to become the honorary head of every local club. This recollection is often cited in accounts of the house. The speaker is usually identified only as a valet, recorded recollection, source name unclear. The phrasing underscores a motive less about ostentation and more about avoiding public entanglements that might undermine the cultivated image of seriousness. Inside the basement, contemporary descriptions and photos line up into a small architectural picture. There was a single wooden lane, polished by repeated use, a painted scoreboard on the wall where scores were tallied by hand, benches for observers, and a modest rack of balls. Adjacent to the lane, a compact exercise room held simple apparatus: a chest expander, a spring-loaded device for upper body resistance, a punching bag in some accounts, and a few free weights. The basement was not a luxurious spa. It was domestic, utilitarian, tailored to personal routines rather than public display. Visual: animated cross-section of Berghof showing lane beneath main floor, callouts, Kegel lane, scoreboard, adjacent gym. After 1945, when Allied and later West German officials wanted to prevent the site from becoming a shrine, they did not always choose tidy demolition. Instead, rubble from torn-down structures was dumped back into the hollows, deliberately burying foundations and basements under tons of concrete, brick, and soil. Photographs of the site in the 1950s show mounds where rooms once were. That method preserved the physical remains under the new ground level. Lanes, boards, and fragments were left in situ, sealed beneath the earth. In some ways, the act of burying was itself a statement, an attempt to deny the place the kind of public attention or pilgrimage that might feed lingering sympathies. There is a peculiar cognitive dissonance in seeing such ordinary objects in the context of monstrous crimes. A wooden lane beside rooms where policy and cruelty were planned. The discovery of a scoreboard or a photograph of a birthday decorated with garlands can prompt immediate reactions: amusement, horror, incredulity. We should resist letting fascination with domestic trivia soften our understanding of what those who lived and ruled from such places did. The banalities of life do not offer moral exculpation. They do, however, complicate our image of history, reminding us that even the architects of mass violence ate, slept, and sometimes rolled a ball for sport. And yet, beneath the rebel, the physical traces are simply artifacts. A scoreboard with a chalked column, a lane worn smooth by repeated rolls, a chest expander coated in dust. They are evidence of a private life, yes, but evidence that must be read alongside the larger catalog of policy and atrocity.
The contrast invites a question that is almost childlike in its simplicity. A question historians still get from viewers and readers: was he any good? The photos show concentration, a tilt of the head, the family company posture around a lane. But skill at a parlor game has no bearing on responsibility. What this buried lane tells us is not a new crime or a different motive. It tells us that power lives in the ordinary spaces of everyday habit, and that those spaces can survive as mute witnesses under tons of rubble. Those silent artifacts are useful for historians because they anchor personal narratives in physical reality. The lane corroborates photographs, the scoreboard matches inscriptions, and the cellar's footprint matches blueprints and eyewitness accounts. They add texture to our understanding.